Welcome back to Stock Explorers. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're going to take a close look at Twilio.
A company that's been making a lot of noise in the customer engagement space.
Yeah, they're kind of everywhere these days, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Ordering a ride, getting a delivery notification.
Even those two-factor authentication codes.
Exactly. Chances are Twilio's tech is behind the scenes somewhere.
They're like the backbone of so much of our digital interactions. But what really sets Twilio apart is like how they combine communication with data to make these interactions, personalized.
So it's not just about sending a message, it's about sending the right message to the right person at just the right time.
Exactly.
Can you give us like a concrete example of how a business might actually use Twilio?
Sure, sure. Let's say you're a clothing retailer. You could use Twilio to send personalized recommendations to your customers based on like their past purchases, their browsing history, or even their location. Like imagine someone browsing your website for winter coats.
Okay, yeah.
Twilio could send them a text message with a discount code for that exact style they were looking at.
And nudge them towards that purchase.
Exactly.
That's really smart. So how does it work? What's the secret ingredient here?
Well, their secret weapon is something called customer AI. It's basically an AI engine that analyzes tons of customer data,
Hmm.
demographics, purchase history, website interactions, you name it.
So it's not just about collecting data, but actually making sense of it and using it to kind of like predict what customers will want.
Yeah, exactly. Customer AI goes through all this data, like mountains of it, to find patterns and predict future behavior. For example, it can figure out which customers are most likely to respond to a particular promotion,
Oh, that's powerful.
or which ones might be thinking about going to a competitor.
Okay, so they can kind of get ahead of that, right?
Exactly.
Now, does Twilio only work with like these huge companies, or can smaller businesses benefit from it too?
That's a great question. They definitely have big names like Lyft and Domino's and Nike using their platform, but Twilio is actually designed to be really flexible, so businesses of all sizes can use it.
Oh, that's good to know.
Their pricing is pretty flexible too, so even a startup or a small business can access these powerful tools.
So no matter what size you are, you can still level up your customer engagement.
Right.
Speaking of leveling up, Twilio recently had their investor day, and there were a ton of news and updates coming out of that.
Yeah, it was a big one. They made a few key announcements, like a pretty substantial share buyback program. They've already bought back over $2.7 billion worth of shares.
That's a huge statement, isn't it? What do you think that tells us about their confidence in the future?
I think it definitely shows they believe their stock is undervalued right now, and they're committed to returning value to their shareholders.
Okay.
I also think it signals that they're pretty optimistic about their growth potential and their financial performance going forward.
Interesting. So they're not just talking the talk, they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Right.
And their Q3 2024 earnings report seems to back that up, right?
Yeah, their recent earnings were strong, revenue was up, and their operating margin is looking pretty healthy. They actually beat analysts' expectations,
Oh, nice.
which always, sends a positive signal to the market.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a company with a unique platform, big name clients, a bold share buyback program, and a solid financial track record.
Yeah.
What else should we know about their strategy?
Well, one word, AI. I mean, it's the hottest topic in tech right now, and Twilio is investing heavily in it. In fact, they've actually partnered with OpenAI, the folks behind ChatGPT, to bring AI into their voice products.
Now, this is where things get really interesting. Just imagine calling customer service, but instead of talking to a person, you're talking to a virtual agent.
And it sounds almost human, right?
Yeah, it understands your issue perfectly and can solve it quickly.
Exactly. It's not necessarily about replacing human agents altogether. It's more about, making the customer experience better. Like
Yeah.
AI can handle those more routine tasks, right?
They're repetitive stuff.
Exactly. And that frees up the human agents to focus on those more complex issues.
Right, the ones that need that human touch.
Plus, AI can be available 24/7 and can even translate languages in real time.
That's incredible. It sounds like AI has the potential to completely transform how we interact with businesses. And it sounds like Twilio wants to be leading that change.
To
But they're not just focusing all their energy on AI, right? I've heard they're also working on other AI projects to personalize all sorts of communication.
That's right, they are. They're looking at how AI can make those automated phone systems, those IVRs, more intuitive and adaptable to the caller.
Oh, so you don't have to press a million buttons to get to the right person.
Exactly. And they're also working on personalizing marketing messages based on individual preferences and even using AI to prevent fraud.
Hmm.
They're basically creating this whole AI-powered ecosystem for better customer engagement.
That's ambitious.
Yeah.
So where do they see all this going? What's the future look like for Twilio?
Well, they're projecting that their target market is going to be worth a whopping $119 billion by 2028.
Wow, that's a lot of growth.
It is, and they're confident they can capture a big chunk of that.
What's driving that growth, do you think?
Well, for one thing, more and more businesses are moving their interactions online, right? So digital communication is becoming more important than ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, people are demanding those personalized experiences. They expect businesses to understand what they want and cater to their specific needs.
They don't want to feel like just another number.
Exactly. And then, of course, you've got all these advancements in AI that are just creating all sorts of new possibilities for how businesses can engage with their customers in smarter and more efficient ways.
So it's like a perfect storm of trends coming together to create this massive opportunity for companies like Twilio that are at the forefront of this digital shift.
Yeah, I'd say so. And Twilio's not just sitting back and watching it happen. They're investing in expanding internationally, partnering with other big AI players.
So they're thinking ahead.
They are. They're developing new products and services to stay ahead of the curve.
They're playing the long game.
Definitely. They're positioning themselves as the leader in this fast-changing market.
Now, while all this sounds incredibly promising, we also need to talk about the potential challenges and risks that come with this strategy.
Oh, of course. Every investment has some risk. It's important to understand both the upsides and the downsides.
Right. So what are some of those potential challenges that Twilio might run into?
Well, competition's a big one. I mean, there are a lot of players in the customer engagement space.
Both big and small.
Exactly. So Twilio needs to keep innovating and finding ways to stand out from the crowd.
So staying ahead of the competition is key. What else?
Another challenge is managing their growth effectively. As they expand their operations and get more customers, they need to make sure they can still provide great service and support.
It's easy to lose sight of the customer experience when you're trying to grow quickly.
Right. Twilio needs to find that balance between growth and keeping their customers happy. And they also need to be really careful about data privacy and security.
They're dealing with a lot of sensitive customer information.
They are. They need to make sure that data is protected and used responsibly.
Data breaches and privacy concerns can be a nightmare for any company, especially one that handles so much personal information.
Absolutely. And with all this focus on AI, there were some ethical considerations too. Making sure that AI is used fairly and transparently is really important for building trust with customers.
Yeah, so while AI offers amazing potential, it also comes with its own set of responsibilities. It sounds like Twilio has a lot to juggle. But from what we've talked about so far, it seems like they have a solid plan and are taking steps to address these challenges.
I think so. They're being proactive and investing in the right areas. They seem to really understand the market and the risks involved.
Okay, so in this first part of our deep dive into Twilio, we've covered a lot. We've talked about their unique business model, their impressive client list, that big share buyback program, their strong financial performance, their ambitious AI strategy, and some of the potential challenges they face.
And we've also talked about the factors that are driving the growth of this whole customer engagement market and how Twilio is positioning themselves to capture a big piece of that.
Great recap. But before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of our future deep dives into the companies and trends that are shaping our world.
Keep exploring, and remember, knowledge is power. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and look at Twilio's financials. Strong growth and a big vision are great, but investors also want to see, solid numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about finding those companies that can actually deliver sustainable financial results. So what's the story with Twilio's financials?
Well, their Q3 2024 earnings report, it paints a pretty positive picture. They reported a 10% year-over-year increase in revenue, reaching over $583 million for the quarter.
Okay, so that's pretty impressive. Double-digit revenue growth is always a good sign. But revenue is only one part of the story, right? What about profitability?
Right, and that's where it gets even more interesting. They actually achieved a non-GAAP operating margin of 16% for the quarter.
Now, for those who might not be familiar with this, can you explain what non-GAAP operating margin actually means?
Sure. Basically, it's a way to measure profitability that doesn't include certain expenses that aren't part of the company's core operations, like stock-based compensation or one-time restructuring charges.
Okay.
So it gives investors a clearer picture of how profitable the company is from its main business activities.
Got it. So a 16% non-GAAP operating margin, that's pretty good, especially for a company that's, investing a lot in growth and innovation. What does that tell us about their ability to like balance growth and profitability?
Well, I think it suggests that they're doing a pretty good job at finding that balance. They're not just chasing growth at all costs. They're focused on making a profit too,
Right.
and they're projecting that they'll actually be GAAP operating profitable for the full year 2025.
Okay, so that's a big milestone, right? Achieving GAAP profitability, that really shows a sustainable business model.
Right. It shows they can generate profits using standard accounting principles, which is reassuring for investors.
Absolutely. And it's not just about profitability, right? They're also really focused on generating strong free cash flow.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you break down what free cash flow means and why it's so important?
Sure. So free cash flow is basically the cash a company has left over after paying for its operating expenses and any big investments it makes. And it's that cash that can then be used for things like dividends, share buybacks, or even acquisitions.
So it's the money they have to like play with, right?
Exactly. And Twilio is projecting to generate over $3 billion in cumulative free cash flow over the next 3 years. So that's 2025 to 2027.
Wow, that's a lot of cash. But what do you think they'll do with all that money?
Well, they've already announced that $3 billion share buyback program.
Right.
So that's probably going to use up a good chunk of that cash.
Which makes sense. I mean, buying back shares is a good way to give back to shareholders, especially if a company believes their stock is undervalued.
Right, exactly. They could also use some of that cash to, make acquisitions, maybe expand their product portfolio or move into new markets. Or they could even invest more in research and development, to keep improving their platform and stay ahead of the innovation curve.
So they got a lot of options, and with a strong balance sheet and all that cash flow, they have the financial flexibility to really pursue those options. But we can't forget that every company faces challenges, and Twilio's no different. What are some of the potential risks or headwinds they might run into?
Yeah, well, one risk is definitely competition, like I mentioned earlier. The customer engagement market is pretty crowded, and there are some big players out there, like Amazon and Microsoft, that are also offering similar solutions.
So they're up against some of the biggest tech companies in the world. How does Twilio, how do they differentiate themselves in such a competitive market?
Well, Twilio is really focused on developers. They've built a really strong reputation for providing high quality, reliable, and scalable solutions. And they're really good at building a platform that can be customized to meet the specific needs of each business.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the whole ecosystem they've built around it.
Exactly. And they've also been smart about expanding their offerings through acquisitions and partnerships. So they've built this really comprehensive suite of solutions that can address a wide range of customer engagement needs.
So it sounds like they're taking a multi-pronged approach to competition, combining innovation, partnerships, and a strong developer community. That's pretty smart. Are there any other potential risks that we should be aware of?
Yeah, I think another risk is just the speed of technological change in the tech industry, right? Twilio needs to constantly innovate and stay ahead of the curve. If they don't adapt and embrace new technologies, they could fall behind pretty quickly.
So it's not enough to be a leader today. They have to keep pushing the boundaries and figure out what's next.
Exactly. The tech landscape is always evolving, and the companies that can't adapt quickly, they often struggle to keep up.
Right. But Twilio seems to have a pretty good track record of innovation. They were early adopters of cloud computing and API-based platforms, and now they're leading the way in AI-powered customer engagement.
Yeah, they've definitely shown that they can anticipate and adapt to industry trends, which is, a good sign. But it's something that that investors should keep an eye on. They want to make sure Twilio is not resting on their laurels.
Right. Complacency can be dangerous in the tech world. Speaking of leadership, let's talk about Twilio's CEO, Cosima Shipchandler. He's relatively new to the role. He took over in late 2022.
Right. He's an interesting guy. He actually has a background in finance. He was Twilio's CFO and COO before becoming CEO.
Yeah, it's not uncommon to see CFOs become CEOs, especially in tech companies where, financial expertise is so important. What's his leadership style like?
Well, he seems to be very data-driven and financially disciplined. He's really emphasized the importance of running a tight ship and focusing on profitable growth.
Which makes sense given his background, but it's not all about the numbers, right?
Yep.
What about his vision for the company? Where does he see Twilio going?
He's been pretty clear about his vision for Twilio. He sees them as the leading customer engagement platform powered by AI and focused on delivering personalized experiences at scale.
So he's building on Twilio's strengths, but also pushing them forward,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to AI.
Exactly. And he's also talked a lot about the importance of building a strong company culture, one that values diversity, inclusion, and innovation.
That's great to hear. A positive company culture is a real advantage when it comes to attracting and keeping talent.
Yeah, and it can really drive creativity and innovation, which are crucial for any tech company that wants to stay ahead.
So it sounds like Twilio has a strong foundation, a clear vision, and a capable leader. But what does all this mean for investors? What are your key takeaways from our deep dive so far?
Well, here's what stands out to me. Twilio is in a huge market that's growing really fast. They have this unique technology platform that's used by some of the biggest brands in the world. They're really embracing AI in a strategic way, and their financials are strong. They have impressive revenue growth. Their margins are expanding, and they're generating a lot of cash. Plus, they have a leader with a clear vision or a track record of getting things done.
That's a pretty compelling list of strengths. But of course, no investment is without risk, right? We've talked about the competition and the need for Twilio to keep innovating to stay ahead. And we've also touched on the importance of managing their growth and addressing those potential challenges related to data privacy and the ethical use of AI.
Right. It's always about weighing the potential rewards against the risks. And every investor has to, decide for themselves whether Twilio's growth potential outweighs those risks.
Yeah, that's a great point. Investing is all about balancing those factors, and it's so important to do your own research, figure out your risk tolerance and make informed decisions. But our goal here at Stock Explorers is to give you the information and insights you need to make those decisions. And that brings us to the big question, right? What does this all mean for our listeners, for those exploring the stock market?
We've talked about Twilio's business, their financials, their vision for the future. What's really sticking with you?
I think for me, it's their commitment to AI
Hmm.
and how they're using it to personalize customer engagement.
Yeah.
It's not just about better communication. It's almost like they're changing how businesses work.
Right. It makes you wonder, could this be a turning point for businesses? Could Twilio's approach change, I don't know, even hiring practices or productivity?
It's interesting to think about, right? Like imagine a world where AI handles all those routine tasks.
Mm-hmm.
That would free up employees to focus on more creative strategic work.
And think about what that could mean for the customer, right? If businesses can really anticipate what their customers need,
Yeah.
build stronger relationships, more loyalty.
Ultimately more revenue.
Exactly.
It feels like a really exciting time for businesses. And Twilio is right there at the forefront of all this change.
They are. It's not just about providing tools. They're creating a whole new model for customer engagement, for how businesses operate.
So as our listeners are looking at the market, considering different investments, Twilio is definitely a company to keep an eye on, right?
Definitely. Bold vision, strong track record, and a lot of room for growth.
But as we've said, every investment has its risks.
Yeah.
We've talked about the competition they face, the need to constantly innovate.
Right. Managing that growth, being responsible with data, thinking about those ethical considerations with AI, it's all part of the picture.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
And ultimately, each investor has to weigh those potential rewards against the risks.
Exactly. Do your research, understand your own risk tolerance, and then then make those informed decisions. And that's what we're here for, right?
That's what Stock Explorer is all about, giving you the information and insights you need to navigate the market.
Exactly.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Twilio. We hope you found it informative, maybe even a little inspiring.
If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future deep dives.
Until next time, keep exploring. And remember, knowledge is power.